It was. That ain't an option.
Yes, it was, because that proves I can count. I thought you were trying to get me to count, because you said 31, 32, 33. I'll say 32.
Okay, and I'll say you're out if you want to.
I was already out.
It was 31. All right. Okay. Matt, you ready?
Well, Matt has a choice whether to go first or last.
I will defer. Jesus. All right.
All right, so that will be the same thing. Lightning round, 5 questions.
All right.
Scott, you ready? Super Bowl
I'm
22,
ready.
Super Bowl 22, 1988. Who was the pregame entertainment? Chubby Checker, Herb Alpert's Salute to Bob Hope.
Jesus. 88. Who was besides Chubby Checker, who are the other choices?
Chubby Checker or Herb Alpert or Salute to Bob Hope.
I'm going to go with Chubby Checker.
You're going to go? No, it was Salute to Bob Hope. All right, next one. Super Bowl 46, 2012. What was the Giants' yards gained rushing? 114, 51, or 93?
Super Bowl 6.
Super Bowl 46, 2012.
46. 126. No,
that's not an option. So the options are 114, 51, or 93.
93.
93, no, it was 114. Next,
you got this bum, Matt.
Super Bowl 32, 1998. Who was the Packers quarterback? Brett, Steve McNair, or John Elway?
That would be Elway. Thank you for that softball.
You want me to read? I'll read the question again. I'll give you something. Super Bowl 32, 1998. Who was the Packers starting quarterback?
Fucking idiot.
I think he missed that.
I can't, for the honor of the show, I can't accept
This is horse crap. I would like to buy a valve.
You missed
ass lunch. Oh, my God.
Next one. Super Bowl 22, 1988. How old was John Elway? 24, 28, or 27?
88, I'm going to guess 24.
Oh. Nope. He was 27.
27.
Now, before we get to the 5th question here, so we ever had anybody go perfect at the start and then go perfect at the end also?
Nope.
These are pretty rough questions, except for the last one.
That Brett Favre being the quarterback of the Super Bowl 31 Packers was pretty rough.
That was a hard one.
On my own brain. Yeah. That was
See, the pressure
sad.
got to him. Go ahead.
Shall I read the last one, or are we done?
Read it. This one's worth 10. Let's go.
Super Bowl 22. Oh, that's interesting.
Wow,
Super Bowl 22, 1988. How old was the Broncos quarterback, John Elway? 24,
you already asked
28, or 20? No, I did not.
Yeah, you did.
No, you did.
If you all right.
I'm going to go with 28.
You're going to go with 28, and it was 27.
What the
That's the same question twice, Scott. If he asked you 3 times, you could get it.
It is the computer, man.
He's 0 for 5. I would like to suggest that maybe whoever had the highest percentage for the whole round should have been there. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this: Do we want to bring up that this question was asked twice in a row, and despite the announcement over the airwaves of the correct answer, it was still not gotten right? I'm just wondering.
I would just like it. Can I buy?
I think everybody realizes it, Aris. He's also the same guy that guessed John Elway was the Green Bay Packer quarterback in Super Bowl 31.
I just need a handicap sticker right now. This is so sad. God.
All right, Matt, you got to get one.
All right, I got to get one right.
You got to. All right.
These better be hard questions.
These are
yours were.
Super Bowl 26, 1992. Who was the Bills' starting quarterback? Mark Rypien, Jim Kelly, Stan Humphries.
I think I'll go with Jim Kelly.
I'm going to go with Jim Kelly, and you would be correct. Next one. Super Bowl 7, 1973. How old was the Redskins quarterback, Bill Kilmer? 33, 30, 34?
I'll go with 33.
I'm going to go with 33, and you would be correct. And that
Can I have
is
some
that.
anal lube, please? Jesus.
Any what?
Can
We
I have some
will
anal
edit that
lube?
out, Matt. Hey, Scott, you got to
Sorry.
clean it up. He's a school
Sorry.
teacher, remember. But,
Stop it.
all right. John, you still there?
Yeah.
Aren't you glad you didn't go 0 for 5 and miss the
Yeah,
question?
I'm here.
Aren't you glad you didn't look as bad as Scott did on the show, even though he made it to the finals?
No comment. But, yeah, it was pretty bad, but no comment.
Yeah.
Well, our winner once again is Matt Andruscavage.
So
Nice
there were
job,
several
Matt.
firsts here that were amazing. So we had the first perfect score, and the guy that had the first perfect score then proceeded to have the worst score in the subsequent rounds. And this was the first time that we had so many rounds to determine the winner. We had 3 full rounds. That was awesome.
We also had about 1,000 questions on Super Bowl 22.
Yeah.
Actually, Scott performed similar to the Denver Broncos in Super Bowl 22. He started off good.
I
He
think
had a
that's true.
perfect first quarter.
Got that
and the
first
second quarter, it
touchdown.
just all fell apart.
If we can educate the listeners, yes.
All right.
And that is part of the show, to educate and inform. So guys, what I was looking, because I have the cheat sheet, of course, and it makes it easy. So I had a question, and I wanted to ask you guys what you thought the answer is. So do you think early Super Bowls, the teams rushed more effectively compared to the later Super Bowls, compared to the middle years?
Well, depends
I think
on what
it
you
did
mean by
just because of the rule
effectively.
changes.
I understand, but it's interesting.
Well, this
What
may
do you mean by effectively?
Packers answer.
So yeah, I mean that's a great. What do I mean by effectively? And this is one definition, and it's not going to be right, but I think it's interesting to think about. Effectively means the yardage gained rushing relative to the outcome. So if you rushed more, you won more frequently.
I think that's pretty similar across time, because when you have a lead, you're going to run the ball more to run the clock out. So I'm not sure if there's a way to differentiate that.
Yeah, and you got to remember, the first 30 Super Bowls, there was probably only 3 or 4 competitive, really close games in there.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
It's just like we
exactly.
talked
The
about
winner's
going to
be running the ball constantly.
Yeah, the Super Bowl 22, the Redskins and the Broncos, the Redskins put up 35 points basically throwing the ball in the second quarter and just ran the rest of the game to get the clock down.
That's why Timmy Smith still has the single-game rushing record.
Yeah, his teams weren't throwing the ball. Unless this is
I'm gonna. I mean, it's really interesting, and I'm gonna sort of try and put the information together, for the next couple of weeks or so, and share it with you guys. And again, I think you're right. You run out the clock, and it was interesting because I was looking to see if the numbers tell us anything about strategies that may have evolved, and also whether the rules change it or so on. But at the end of the day, if you're winning, you're rushing. I don't know whether the passing and how that number. I'm going to calculate that number next time based on the on the data and see what's what. But what I was interested in, like through history, 50 Super Bowls, are we seeing the same pattern for the early winners versus the the last couple of years? Because again,
for passing,
for anything, for any aspect of the game, passing, rushing, just any aspect of the game that I can I can track with the data that we.
Well, isn't it mostly Mike? Isn't it mostly a passing? Passing tends to rule the league now.
Well, it does, and I mean you can see that in the draft. I mean you had one running back taken in the first round.
Yeah.
Where it used to be every year the best running back usually went in the top 5.
But having the last 12 Super Bowls, they've all been fairly high scoring as far as the winning team is putting up at least 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Yeah. Where in the past the games, I mean, Super Bowl 7 was 14-7, and I think Bob Greasy, if I'm not right here, Matt, wasn't he 6 or 8 for 60 yards or something?
He had hardly any yardage at all. And then you look at Super Bowl 1, Bart starts throwing the ball in the first half, and then they got that lead, and then they just ran pretty much the rest of the way. So,
I think
it all depends on how the game's going.
Yeah, I mean, I think you had a lot of blowouts the first 30 Super Bowls.
Right.
Heck, I remember you didn't really have
you
competitive
raised
Super Bowl to Super Bowl 10.
Right.
When you look at the
Blowout.
MVPs too.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, when's the last
Yeah.
time a running back was the MVP to Super Bowl?
Boy, it's been a while. It should have been in 06, but you'd probably have to go. Holy cow! Terrell
I bet
Davis.
It was Terrell Davis. That's the one.
That was
that's the one
Super
I
Bowl
can think
32. That's 18 years ago.
Of. Wow.
Yeah.
How many quarterbacks have been MVP since?
Pretty much everybody, every year.
Yeah, and the ones that aren't were usually a DB that picked off 2 or 3 passes. You know, to Larry Brown,
Right, yeah.
guys like that.
Yeah.
Dexter Jackson and Malcolm Smith.
Butler.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Did Butler actually get the MVP or was it Brady?
I was curious as to the pattern of blowouts, you know, because we've had a couple of blowouts recently, and is that, you know, have there been more blowouts in a certain period of the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I'd say
the last 15 years. The last 15 years have had a lot of really good games.
Yeah.
But up until Super Bowl 32, it had been a blowout pretty much every year, except for 23 and 25.
Well, I mean, the 80s, the only competitive games you really had were Super Bowl 16 and 23.
Yeah, and then 1990.
Well, you had the 91 game, and 91 was what? Didn't the Giants win on a
2019
field goal miss? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that is interesting is like, what's the difference between a blowout game versus a dominant game, where the one team is so dominant, but it's not reflected on the scoreboard, you know, because you have, garbage time scoring and stuff like that, right? So,
well, didn't the Bengals dominate the second half in 82, and they still lost?
Yeah, because they were down 20-0, so they had ways to go to try to come back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, let's not talk about those games. Matt loves to do that, so he can bully me about my team getting beat.
I didn't bring it up.
I know. It looks like somebody who was a Bengals fan would have good sense enough not to, but we're talking about Scott, who was 0 for 5 in the final round.
I just want some more Brett Favre. That's all I need. Just give me some Brett.
All right. But, all right, guys, remind everybody to check out thegruelingtruth.net. Check out the interviews we did tonight with Kenneth Farrow, who's the new running back for the San Diego Chargers, Darius Hillary, who will be a new Bengals cornerback. Check out all of our past shows with the NFL legends, such as Fred Dreyer, Roger Brown, guys like that, Christian Okoye. Tomorrow night we will have our Inside Boxing Weekly show with myself, Jeremiah Pricer, and we will have Kermit Cintron on the night before his comeback fight. Cintron was the former welterweight champion of the world. So you got any final words, Matt?
No, just good games tonight, and it's crazy we had a 3-way tie.
Basking in the glory.
We'll see what happens next week.
Yeah,
I guess so. 3 in a row.
Which 5 a lot of weeks would be enough to get you to the final.
Yeah, can we delete the last 8 minutes of the show?
Well, we may just delete you ever being here. But
yeah,
maybe we'll just
Aris, any final words?
Thank you, everybody. That was an awesome show. Let's do this again, guys.
That was fun.
Oh, well, we will be back next Wednesday. We've already got a couple more people that want to be on the show, so we'll bring them in.
Yep.
And if you beat me and Matt, you'll get to come on the next week to defend your title. That will not be Scott Wilson. So make sure you check out Gridiron Mo at www.gridironmo.com. Once again, you can check us out on Google Music, iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, just about everywhere there's podcasts, you'll find us. Check out thegruelingtruth.net. So for John Aikman, Scott Wilson, Aris Persidis, Matt Andruscavage, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.